Hey, what's going on, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time in your day to hang out with me. I really appreciate it. And in today's video, I'm going to be doing an updated Omnath Locus of Rage deck tech. The last time I did this was, I believe, in 2019, I think. I will list that video in the down bar below, and I believe I've done one more prior. I honestly don't know, but Omnath, I would say, is probably one of my most powerful decks. This deck can win pretty quickly, and it's a very consistent deck because honestly pretty much all the cards are like, you get lands to the battlefield. Like, it's not a very like revolutionary deck. I'm not doing anything crazy like innovative or anything like that here, but this deck is super fun. Yeah, I will list the the deck as well on Tapped Out in the down bar below, just so that you can look at it and like follow along if you want to. Also, something you can do on there as well as like look at the price. I don't know actually how prices of things work on Tapped Out because they kind of give you like a range, and I don't really know what that means. So if anyone actually knows that on Tapped Out, because like for example, I'm looking at the TCG player and it says $450 to $936. So I don't know if that means that like, if you get damaged, like the low is like if you get damaged cards, and the high is if you get like near mint, lightly played. I don't know if that's what that means, or if that means like if you get everything not in foil and then everything, all like the spec'd out foils that I have. I don't really know. You could easily build this deck for, I'm not kidding you, $100 with bare bones, no foils, basic cards. You can easily do that. I just really love foils, and that's something I've always really enjoyed. So yeah, Omnath is the commander. Can I zoom you guys in just like a little bit more? Let me zoom you guys in a little bit more. Yeah, Omnath is the commander. He's super good, incredibly strong. Yeah, let's just hop into this video. So I am gonna start with the Mana Beast. So I run, starting with basics, let me check my list, 8 mountains. So I love how they're all different, and when I say love, I mean I don't like. But yeah, I run 8 of these mountains, and then I run 12 forests because the deck is primarily green. Now let's talk about specialty lands. So I first run 1 Ash Barrens, and I really enjoy this card a lot. I think this card is really good. You have basic land cycling, which is pretty much how I always use it, and then you discard it to get a basic, which is great. Then I have Blighted Woodland. Very great card. I like it because for 4 mana, you can sack it to get 2 basics and you put them on the battlefield tapped. Not a whole lot to say. It's really good. It's a land that gets me other lands. And what I like about 2 is that it doesn't enter the battlefield tapped, and so I can keep using it for colorless. And then when I want to cash this in, I can do it. Then I have Bonder's Enclave, which I really love. This is one of the few cards from Ikoria that I actually really like. It does add colorless to your pool, and then for 3 you can draw a card. You can only get this if you have creatures with power 4 or greater. Pretty much every single card in this deck has a creature that's power 4 or greater. So getting this off is definitely not a problem. Then I have Cinder Glade. It is battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more basic lands. I like it because it is a mountain forest, so if I need that, that's definitely relevant. Then I have Evolving Wilds, and I think while we're here, we'll just also chat about Terramorphic Expanse because they're basically the same thing. I can sacrifice them to get, to get another land, which is great. Then I have Fertile Thicket, which I really enjoy. You can look at the top 5. You can reveal a basic land. You put that on the battlefield. I'm sorry, you put it on the top of your library. And you put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order, which is good. Then I have Ghost Town. I don't think a lot of people know what this card does, but I think if you're building Omnath, you should definitely look into this card. It adds 1 colorless to your pool, and then for 0, you can return it to your hand. You can only do it during another player's turn, but this is really good if you actually run out of lands, which can definitely happen. I also don't think I mentioned, but I run 38 lands in this deck. Then I run Gruul Turf, and very similarly, I run Guildless Commons. I really enjoy both of these lands because, again, I want to get as many lands as I possibly can out, and these cards definitely help get me there. Those are really good bounce lands. Then I run Mountain Valley, which is great. It does enter the battlefield tap, but you get to, when it untaps, you get to search your library for mountain or forest, and you put it on the battlefield, which is great. And it doesn't say basic, so you can get one of your specialty lands, which is great. I run Myriad Landscape, which I really like this card a lot because it gets me 2 basics for 2 mana. They do enter the battlefield tapped, but honestly, it doesn't really matter because it still triggers off of Omnath. Stomping Ground, pretty basic, pretty straightforward, but this card is, gets me in my colors. Then I run Temple of Abandon, which is great because I like scrying. This card is called Terrarian Generator, and this card's great. For 2 mana, you can put a basic land from your hand onto the battlefield tapped, which is really, really cool. It does say basic, so that's just something to note. Then I run Undiscovered Paradise, which this card is a lot more expensive than I actually thought that it was, as I'm just looking at the price right now. Wow, this card is actually pretty expensive. I don't even remember how I got it, but you add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, and at the beginning of your upkeep, your next untapped phase, you return it to the battlefield, so you return it to your hands. This is great because you get to bounce it and get more lands and get more triggers off of Omnath. Of course, running Valakut, definitely one of the cards that I would really recommend looking into, because you get to lightning bolt people. And the last land I run is Wooded Foothills. Cool. That is it for the mana base. Now let's jump into other stuff. Let's talk about Planeswalkers. I only run 1, and that is Nissa Vital Force. Also, just as a quick note, I know this art is done by Therese Nielsen, and I personally do not support her any longer. These were purchased long before I knew these were a gift from Paul, got them for me, and this was something purchased. So eventually I'd probably like to phase this out of my collection and not own it anymore because I don't support her. So it's just something I want to really quickly note. I do really enjoy this card, however, not her. I don't enjoy her, but I really enjoy this card. I really like it actually for the ult more so because it's really easy to get the ult because it's 5, you just uptick, and then the following turn you can downtick. Whenever land enters battlefields under your control, you may draw a card. And this with Doubling Season is really good, which I do have in here as well. That's the only Planeswalker I run in my deck. Now let's jump into artifacts. So the first one I run is Hammer of Purphoros, and very similar. Oh no, I'll talk about that card when I get to it. Hammer of Purphoros, I really like this because everything I get has haste. This other ability is not usually very relevant, so it just kind of depends. But I actually have used that second ability before, which is kind of funny. But having haste is incredibly good. Then I run Helm of the Host because this makes it so I can have multiple Omnaths, which is pretty silly. So this card's awesome. Then I run Perilous Vault because I don't actually have a lot of removal in this deck, which is pretty surprising knowing me, but I feel like a lot of it is just overshadowed by all the lands, and I feel like Omnath can kind of remove things by itself, but I like having this as a security blanket. Then I run Soul Ring, self-explanatory. I also run Staff of Nin, or as I like to call it, Staff of Win. I do really like this card a lot. At the beginning of upkeep, you do get to draw an additional card, and then it deals 1 damage. I can run out of gas, like, in this deck. Like, I can run out of things, like, to do. So Staff of Nin definitely helps get me there because I get to draw extra cards, and I can ping something or someone, which is great. I run Swiftfoot Boots. I actually don't have a Greaves. I think it's just because I don't have an extra one, but I do want to put a Greaves in here since I don't own one, which is interesting. But yeah, this basically always is on Omnath just so that people can't kill him. And the last artifact that I run is Sword of the Animist, which might eventually come out. I think it does get me basics, but I don't know. This might come out eventually. I'm not sure. Okay, now let's talk about enchantments. So the first one I run is Beastmaster Ascension because honestly, why would I not run Beastmaster Ascension? Because I have a lot of tokens, and then when I swing, and this has 7 or more counters, everything gets +5/+5. So all those tokens with Onmouth that are 5/5s now become 10/10s, so you can kill people very quickly with this card. Card is awesome. The next card I run is Burgeoning, and I don't think that you need Burgeoning in every single commander deck, but I do like it in this deck. Any types of lands types of decks, I think Burgeoning is a solid inclusion, so I do like it in here, and I also really enjoy this. Not Conspiracy. This is Commander, I believe. I really enjoy this art a lot. Doubling Season. Okay, if you are building Omnath, and like I said, you can build this deck budget. And if there's like one card that you should splurge on in this deck, it's definitely Doubling Season because you get double the amount of tokens with this card, which is so incredibly good. So if you get a token, you just get an additional one. I would highly, highly, highly recommend splurging and picking up this card. You will not regret it, I promise. The next card I run is Exploration. You may play an additional land on each of your turns for 1 mana, which is great. This one is the Double Masters thing, which is very, very, very beautiful. But yes, I really, really, really love this card a lot. This is very similar to Burgeoning. I don't think you need this card in every one of your decks, but for Omnath, it makes total sense. Playing all those lands. The next card I have is Fervor, very similar to Hammer of Purphoros, but everything I control is haste, which is great. Very similarly to those, I also run Fires of Yavi Maya, and then also, if I have, let's just say I have, like, this and Fervor, or this and Hammer of Purphoros, like, I don't really need double haste, like, that doesn't do anything, but I can sacrifice this to give something +2/+2, and potentially kill people with Omnath. This is a card that I'm playing around with, which is called Garrick's Uprising. This card says, if it when it enters the battlefield, if you control a creature with power 4 greater, draw a card. Creature control trample, which is good. And then whenever a creature with power 4 greater enters the battlefield in your control, you draw a card, which is basically the entire deck. So I'm playing around with this card. I don't really know. I just put it in there pretty recently, so I'm not sure, but I think this card is very good in this deck. Then I run Goblin Bombardment, and the reason I run this card in this deck is if someone goes to board wipe or exile my board in response, I can sacrifice it. I can sacrifice my creatures. What's really good about this with Omnath is that I sacrifice it and deal 1, but with Omnath, I deal 3. So I actually deal 4 per creature, which is really good. Then I have Colony Heart Expedition, just a card to get me more cards. Then I run Parallel Lives, which I love this card. This is another card, aside from Doubling Season, that if you're gonna splurge on a card, like splurge on these two, I would say are the cards that I would definitely recommend picking up because you do get double tokens. These cards are very similar, so I'm going to talk about them together, which is Warstorm Surge and Where Ancients Tread. Both of these cards are incredibly good. They are a lot of mana, but you got to keep in mind, like, you're pumping out so much mana that it literally doesn't matter. And so they just do a massive amount of damage. This one says with 5 or greater, but again, that's basically the entire deck, so you don't care about that. You just get to casually do 5 damage. It does say creature or player, and this one also says creature or player, so you can just do a lot of damage with both of these cards. I really love both of these. Let's talk about instants. I only run 2. I run a Beast Within because, again, I don't have that much removal, but I like to have a little bit. This does destroy anything that, like, I can't remove with Omnath. And again, because Omnath only targets creatures or players, so this would be, like, really good for, like, an artifact or an enchantment, or a land or something like that. And it gets them a beast, which I don't really care about because I can just blow it up with Omnath. And then Crozen Grip because I like to have a little bit of artifact and enchantment removal. Okay, now let's talk about sorceries. I actually run a lot of sorceries, which is 20, and I run, first off, Blasphemous Act. This is really good in this deck as well because it does actually hit your stuff, which might sound, like, weird, but, like, again, if your things die, you're like, cool, I get to just get triggers off of Omnath, which is great. Also, you never pay this cost for this card. You always pay, like, 1 mana for this card, which is great. Then I run Boundless Realms, which is such a good card. This card does say basic lands, but you know what? It doesn't really matter. You just get all your things, and you get them to battlefield tapped, which is great. Then I run Broken Bond. I really like this card, actually. It destroys target artifact or enchantment, and you can put a land onto the battlefield, which is great. It actually does say non-basic as well, so you can get any land, which is great. Then I run Chain Reaction as another board wipe. This can just do a lot of damage to things and just blow a lot of things up. And again, triggers off of Omnath, which is great. Then I run Cultivate. I also have this is really sweet. This is a Spanish Cultivate, which is really cool. It's kind of like a little bit of, like, foiling. If you can see that, the foil is, like, kind of, it's a little bit of an error, but I actually really like it. I love this art as well. This art's so pretty. But yeah, Cultivate, you know, you get this card and Kodama's Reach I'll talk about together because they literally do the same thing. You tutor for 2 basic, you put one on the battlefield tapped and the other on your hand. Shuffle your library. Not a whole lot to say. I feel like a lot of this deck, there's just not a whole lot to say. They just do it and you just get triggers off of Omnath. I run Decimate as well. I'm playing around with this card. I don't really know if I want to keep it in here, but you just target artifact, creature, enchantment, and land, so you do have to meet all these requirements. The only one that I see might be a little bit tricky is enchantment, because I feel like all the other things you'll have targets for, but I do think that this card is good. Then I run Explore. Very simple. You play an additional land and you draw a card. I don't have that much card draw in this deck, so I think this card is good to have. I also run Explosive Vegetation, which is great because you get 2 basics and you do put them on the battlefield tap, which is good. Fade into Antiquity, which is one of my personal favorite cards because it exiles an artifact or enchantment. Love it. Harmonize. You draw 3 cards. Great card. Nissa's Pilgrimage. This card's really good. If you do have Spell Mastery, which it's very easy to get Spell Mastery, you actually get 3 forests, which is really good. So I would definitely recommend running Nissa's Pilgrimage because you're gonna have Spell Mastery, like pretty much 0 questions. And then I run Rampant Growth, which is a really good card. You just get a basic, very straightforward. Ranger's Path, which a lot of people don't know about. It's basically like Explosive Vegetation, but it does say forest, but this says non-basics, so you can get anything, which is good. Rishkar's Expertise is a card I really enjoy because you get to draw a ton of cards and you get to cast something without paying its mana cost. It is kind of a lot of mana, but I honestly think this card is so worth it. Then I run Seek the Horizon, which a lot of people don't know what this card does, but you get to tutor for 3 basics, put them in your hand, which is really great to replenish and restock your hand. Shamanic Revelation, another draw card, which I really love. You will have Ferocious very easily, and you will gain a lot of life. I've come back from games where I've been at very little life, and I've managed to do this and just gain a lot of life, which is great. Then I run Skyshard Clan, which is basically the same thing as Ranger's Path. You get 2 forests at the battlefields. They don't enter the battlefield tap, though, which is good. Summer Bloom, because sometimes I can just have an overflow of cards in my hand and I want to just get those lands out. And the last one is Sylvan Scrying, and I like this because it does say non-basic, and you get it to the battlefield. I'm sorry, to your hand. Now moving on to creatures. I run 20 creatures. The first one I run is Acidic Slime because it blows things up. Yeah, this isn't an elemental, but I honestly don't think it matters. I just really like to have this card, and it also has Death Touch, which is good. Now I do have an elemental, which is A to Z, aka Avenger of Zendikar. This card is awesome. You get things, landfall, super easy. Your plants can get very big. This is kind of like, to me, like an alternate win condition, because like pretty much you're gonna win with your commander and having all those 5/5s, but A to Z can definitely help get you there, because if you just trigger your landfall a couple times, those 0/1 plants can just get really big. Then I have Azusa, Lost But Seeking, which is a very good card in this deck because you get to play multiple lands, multiple triggers off of Omnath. Then I run Courser of Crufix, which is really great. I love this card a lot. It does gain you a little bit of life, which I don't have that much life gain, but I like to have a little bit in my back pocket. And you get to play the top card if it's a land. Crater of Behemoth, which, you know, just killing people with this card is very good, because, you know, you have a bunch of things and then they get +X/+X, where X the number of creatures you control. You have a lot of creatures. Even if you have like 5, everything gets +5/+5, which is really good. And triple. Had to put Eternal Witness in this deck because why not? You just get something back. I really like this, you know, you can get like your Crater of Behemoth back. You can get like your, I don't know, your Beast Within back, you know, anything that pretty much goes to the graveyard, which is great. Next, I run Fertility, which I really like this card in this deck because it is an elemental, so it does trigger, and it also gets you lands. It's kind of like a little bit of mana, but I like it in early stages of the game where you don't necessarily have as much mana, and you can kind of like chip this away, and then when it dies, you get a trigger off of Omnath, which is good. Then I run Green Warden of Marasa, which is again an elemental, which is awesome. When it enters the battlefield, it's basically a double Eternal Witness. When it dies, you do have to exile it, but if you do that, you get a target creature from your graveyard to your hand, so it's a double E-Wit. Great card. Mina and Den Wildborn. I love this card. You may play an additional land on your turn, but what I really like about this card is you can actually bounce lands, and you can re-get your triggers off of Omnath, which is really good, so love this card. Then I run Nissa Basswood Seer. She enters the battlefield, and you get a forest, which is great, and whenever a land, if you control 7 or more lands, which is literally not a problem, you get to flip her, and she turns into Nissa Sage Animist, which is really good. Honestly, I really like her uptick, and I think that's definitely like the most that I probably use with her, but yeah. That is Nissa Basswood Seer. Next we have Nylia, God of the Hunt. I love it because of the trample. That's the main reason. I would say I don't frequently use this because I usually have other things that I'm doing with my mana, but if I have nothing else going on, I can definitely pump something. Then I run Oracle of Muldaya, which I know this card is expensive, but oh my gosh, so worth it. I love Oracle of Muldaya, getting the chance to play additional lands and putting the creatures onto sorry, Leia is right there. She's sniffing everything, but you get to play the top card of your field, and you play it if it's a land, which is great. Perforos, God of the Forge. Oh, I love this card so much. So, whenever a creature ETBs under your control, you get to deal 2 damage to each opponent, which is so incredibly good. And you can also pump your team as well, which is great. Then I have Reclamation Sage, not an elemental, but I do like it because you can destroy artifact or enchantment. Quite a few artifact or enchantment cards in this deck, which I like. Then I run Regal Force, which I love this card. Draw a card for each green creature you control. They are, in fact, red and green with Omnath, so this does get trigger off of your tokens, and you can just replenish your hand and draw a ton of cards. This card is awesome. Then I run Sakura Tribuilder. Again, very basic. Just sack it to get a basic into your hand. Then I run Solemn Simulacrum. This card is just basically an auto-inclusion for me and like everything, because you just get basics, and when it does, you draw. Great card. Then I run Tireless Tracker, which I absolutely love this card. Whenever lands enter, you investigate, you get to sack it and draw a card, and then whenever you sack a clue, you can put a +1/+1 counter on it. That to me is not the most relevant part of this card. To me, the most relevant part is like just investigating and getting those clues that you get to sack to draw a card, which I love. I love card draw. And the last card in the deck, the last creature, is Yavi Maya Elder. And I like this card. It is kind of like a lot of mana, but I like it because you get 2 basics into your hand and you get to draw cards. So it's kind of like a lot of mana, but I look at it how you pay 3, do nothing with it, and then maybe like the next turn you sack it. Sometimes I just cash it in all the same turn, just kind of depends, but the card's great. So anyways, guys, that is it for this Omnath deck tech. I do like to go through these videos kind of quick. I feel like some people like that and some people don't. The reason I do it pretty quickly, though, is just because I don't want to be sitting here with a 40-minute deck tech. I don't know if everyone is going to be really interested in that, but yeah, this deck is super good. It's super powerful, super consistent. One of my most powerful decks, if not my most powerful. And it's just a good time. So if you guys like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll catch you in my next one.